Hi, everybody. It's your boy Kai, and I am hosting the Vibe with Kai. This is the Vibe with Kai podcast. Super excited to be sitting with my two fellas right here on your screen. We got John, we got Dennis. We're talking about some fantasy novels here. We're talking about some. I'm a nerd, and I don't get to talk about this a lot on my platform. So the fact that I get to talk about my nerdiness today and the project that the both of you are working on, the fact that I get to sit and like just like cast off my cool people robe for a second and put on like my cloak of nerdiness with the both of you, it warms my heart. I hope you both know that.
I forgot mine.
What the, you were supposed to come prepared.
I'm sorry. It's been a crazy few days.
I'm super excited. I'm sitting here with Jonathan Wells, Denise Bruzzi,
Oh, flashbacks to fifth grade. Flashbacks to fifth grade.
Dennis Bruzzi, and we're going to be talking about a new series of novels. I think there's going to be 9 altogether that you're working on, right?
That is the
9,
plan as it stands right now.
it's which is insane. I can't wait to like dive into this. 9 books entitled "The Blood of a King." And it's a epic fantasy series of war, magic, intrigue, and they're looking to start publishing this officially in 2023, which is not that far from now, by the way, fellas. It's not far. It's coming up.
No, compared to how long the process has been so far, it's basically tomorrow.
Yes, exactly. But we're gonna dive deep into that. Before we get started, my friends, if you are enjoying this podcast that you're listening to right now, all you have to do is go follow me on Patreon, and you're gonna get even more of this type of stuff, some more in-depth details about everything in my life and other things that happen as well. Or you can just visit me on my favorite social media platforms: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, whatever it is that you hang out on. I'm probably there. So you can come follow me there at The Vibe with Kai. Okay, enough about me. I'm tired of talking about me. I want to talk about the two of you writing a book, an epic book, The Blood of a King. So tell the world, what is the blood of the king? What is it? Tell us. Set the stage here.
It is the culmination of, I would say, about 10 years of a daydream I started having at 12 years old. And at it took so many different shapes and forms. I drew from a lot of different interests I had as a 12-year-old that eventually got phased out as we pushed further towards it actually being a story. And I roped Dennis here, my college roommate of 2 years, into the process after we already graduated. I've I've heard a lot about that over the last 8 years that we've been working on this thing.
You say roped as if like he's like reluctantly here. Are you a hostage, Dennis?
Well, sometimes. No, but we always joke about that because we talked about this, I think, a couple months after we graduated college, and it's funny that we lived together, and the process of working on it probably would have been so much easier if we had started it 2 months earlier. But
And I never said a word in 2 years we lived together. It was just something bouncing around in my head that I would, go a place where I would go and when I was supposed to be, paying attention during class or studying or doing something more productive.
That's awesome though. And so it was your idea, John, and then you kind of roped Dennis into this, and then where did it go from there?
Well, Dennis you had written a few plays up to that point. So like Dennis had experience writing and I just had this big imagined garble in my head. So the way it started out was we spent a few months like in my parents' basement and his parents' basement, just like world building and filling in the blanks and coming up with our world name and our god's names and our big baddies names. And once we got all like the foundational information down, for the first few months, it was I would dictate what I wanted to happen in a chapter, and then Dennis would write the chapter. And I, that was the way it went for a while until I decided to be brave and take a shot at writing a chapter myself. And I thought it was really fun. So by the end of the process, we were kind of just like slinging chapters back and forth. He would write one, I would write one. And then we did that probably within like a year, 2 years. Is that right, Dennis?
I would say that. Yeah, it started the beginning stages of it were really funny. I remember the first night that we got together was at a Starbucks about halfway through, and John was world building in his head, and I was just kind of typing it out because that was at the beginning, that was the start of it where I was writing and he was story building. I still have this 30-page document in Word. And I still, not to this day, but the first year I was writing it, it was just like gibberish to me. He was going through, kingdom from kingdom and king
God
to
to
king.
God.
And it's just this mass of words. And I was reading through it the first time. I'm like, what the hell is all this? And then the process of bouncing it back and forth. And then when John jumped in writing too, and it happened relatively quickly when you started jumping in to write with me. I think we were only like 3 or 4 chapters into the first draft, and then you were just like, I'll take a crack at it. And then we bounce back. I mean, the amount of documents we sent back and forth, it's just you should see our emails from back in the day. Chapter 2 revised, chapter 2 version 2 revised, chapter 2
I can only imagine
revised.
because
just like, which one is it?
One of the things I hope people understand is that, as they're listening to this and watching this, what people should understand is that this is not just like a normal like book. Like this is like this big, huge, like epic, like think like Lord of the Rings type of epic, story that's being told. And so it's not necessarily like the easiest things to write, because as you both mentioned, you are literally building this world full of people and creatures and things and gods that are not real, right? It's not based off of like walking up the street to a Wawa. For those people sometimes don't know what Wawa is, and I always use Wawa as a reference. And I have people that listen to this all over the country, and I always get a message saying, "What is Wawa?" And I'm like, "It's the best place on earth. That's all you need to know."
Come to Jersey and find out.
Yes,
you never heard of Hoagie Fest?
Yes. Oh man, it's the best. It's the best. So if somebody were to come up to you and say, "Hey, Blood of a King, what is that about?" how would you describe, like, what is the basis of the story?
The basis of the story, and I would say by extension the series, is the fallout of defeating the bad guy.
Oh,
between the prologue and chapter 1, the villain in our hero's world, in our hero's story, is defeated. And
spoiler alert.
And the rest of the story deals with the I want to say the weeds that pop up in the cracks in the stones after you think that you've beaten your big enemy and you think that everything's going to be okay now, but really your problems are just starting.
Mm-hmm.
And one of our main characters, who is the king of a small kingdom called Astamir, has finally has become a legend by defeating this great empire, and the power vacuum that ends up exploding out after that really turns into more than he anticipated, and he's starting to actually doubt his abilities and skill set and who he can trust as things start to move forward, and it starts to affect his life, the life of his son, his friends, his allies. Yeah,
I love the concept of like what happens like after, like the fallout of like the story is being told, and then now you have to deal with the fallout, because that's not normally what kind of like happens. Like this is like a unique way to kind of go about telling a story, right? So there's already an established connection between the characters, and this story is dealing with what happens afterwards. I see what you're doing, by the way. I'm onto you, because when they make a movie out of this one day, they're going to make the 9 movies, right? That's going to bring in a lot of money, and then you have prequel material. I see what you're doing. This is all about making billions of dollars at the box office. I'm onto you, John.
Tyrus? Well, yes, but no. Tyrus, I've got enough material in here, and also we have enough material down on paper to go for decades.
Yeah. Is that the goal? So is that how like, when do you think, is this going to be like a George R.R. Martin thing where you're saying like it's going to be finished, but like it's not coming?
Look, I can't speak to how we're going to progress on this, but I have every intention of us getting a book out no more than 2 years apart. We haven't even officially published book one. Book two, we're about 150 pages in, and hopefully we can have that out. We've been told we should try to get it out by September of next year. So when you got Blood of a King dropping in hopefully like May or June, you got book two with the Dark Crown, officially announcing the Dark Crown book two.
You heard it here. You heard it here first, folks. Dropping exclusives here.
And hopefully, dropping that in September. So there's like a small blitz. It's not like releasing like 4, but any audience we gain for book one, like, oh, where's book two? It's coming. It's right around the corner.
Okay.
I feel like every single time John talks about the series and just the world in general, he's talking about another spin-off series that he wants to work on in the future for another character from the past. So very much just like
I've got sequels, I've got prequels, I've got anthologies, I've got thousands of years of history that I got to fill in the blank for.
Good for you. Good for you, because that's a lot of like information there, like a lot. And I'm quite envious of the ideas that you have here, because I'm like, how do you organize any of this?
A lot of Word documents and a lot of notebooks.
Well, a lot of thoughts in his head swirling around.
Yeah.
You should see in his apartment, he's got a stack of notebooks this big, and I'm pretty sure every single one of them is a different storyline in this world.
That's hilarious. So Dennis, I wanna ask you, like when this process first started, like John was saying that like he would kind of throw the ideas at you, and you would kind of just start to write, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a writer, what inspired you to like take on this style of writing? Are there certain books or certain authors that kind of you looked to for inspiration or for guidance for this?
Yeah, I mean, I started with obviously when I was growing up reading Harry Potter. I mean, I love the world of Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling as a writer in general. And a lot of what intrigued me about this book from that first meeting was just the sheer size of the world that John put together and in his head. And when you throw out the words Game of Thrones, I think about that because there's just so many kingdoms, there's so many moving parts in this world that are happening, whether it's on the page or not in the background. And I just think that that's a really special thing that John was able to put together in his head. Just it allows you to escape this world almost when you enter that world, and you really just jump right into it if that's the case. And when we started this book, that was the first time that I had put words down on paper for a book. Like John said, I was only really working on plays or screenplays in general. So that was like a new world for me. And so I would stepping into it for the first time. It can be kind of overwhelming because where do you start? I mean, it's like that SpongeBob scene. You put the first word down and you have no idea where you're going from there. And but it was a learning task. It was a learning task, and that's why when John stepped in to help write, it was a really big breath of fresh air, because having two voices in this and building it back and forth off that is kind of how I thought it became the best version of itself. And coming straight from the source in John's head, putting it on paper is also the most direct way to do that. And I can't tell you how many times that I sent something to John and he's like, "What are you thinking putting that down?"
No.
So it was stepping into a different out of my comfort zone to a degree. But I'm happy to be a part of it, and people like J.K. Rowling inspired me. Robert Kirkman, who wrote the Walking Dead graphic novels, which I'm reading through for probably the 5th time at this point, inspired me too. It takes a special person to build something like that, and I'm happy to have been a part of it.
Right. It's funny because like you've been working on this for quite some time, and I'm very curious for both of you, like how much has changed in the way that you have approached it from back then to like right now, because it's been at least, how long has it been since you started this project?
8 years.
8 years, right? And that's almost a full decade like has gone by. Like how has your approach changed at all? And as a result to that approach, has like with both of you growing up and becoming older, has that changed any of the story or the way that you look at characters over the past 8 years?
The story has gone through little changes in my head, like finer details being refined, but what's really changed now as compared to our early process is simplicity. You know, we so far in our writing of the first draft for book 2, it's really just we're sending the same document back and forth and just adding to it instead of having 6 or 7 different versions of the same document. It's just the one. We make our additions and our edits to it, and it just goes back and forth between us, because trying to put together this 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle from all the different versions of the documents we had and not knowing which one was the right one was maddening, and it really slowed us down.
I feel like a good line that we used back and forth was just resend me the most recent one, because it had been like 2.5 weeks since we've seen it. We had sent it back 3 or 4 times in the process of it. We're just like, what's the most recent one you have? Here's the one that I have. It's not the same. Which one's right?
I never got that one.
Have you ever like run into like writer's block at all? Like have you just been like at one part of the story and you're like, I am not sure what comes next?
Yeah. We plotted out. We have like we called a chapter map for our first for the first book, and now I believe I'm working off what I've called a skeleton plot, which is the exact same thing. I just called it something else. But knowing what's going to happen, I found that there's a sort of a disconnect between knowing what's going to happen and painting the picture and like having the action happen. Like, you know, having point A and point B is great, but like all the little things that happen in between, that's actually where I have the most trouble sometimes.
Yeah.
And you know, you walk away from it for an hour or two, and then you're like, I got it.
Right. Yeah, I can't. I'm sitting here trying to like imagine what it's like to write a story like this, because I write blogs every week, and like writing blogs is hard enough, right? But yet to write like an epic fantasy adventure, I'm just like my brain would legit explode. I have no idea how y'all are even doing this right now.
You get plenty of
give it
nights
a
of
try.
that.
I can what?
You get plenty of nights of that.
Wait, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
You get plenty of nights of that sitting at 2:30 in the morning, just contemplating what the heck you're putting down on paper.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You get a lot of late night emails from each other.
Oh my God. Yeah, dude, there's like, and one of the things that I do is I always have like a notebook like near me where I can just like write down, you know, just like ideas and things that pop into my head, because Lord knows I'll forget. And I'll just kind of write it down. Is it the same for the both of you? Like, do you just always have like, are you just always thinking about it at this point and just like thinking of ideas, things that you can add in and stuff like that?
I'd say it's about 90% of my headspace at this point.
I won't tell Meg that.
She's the other 10.
That's a big 10 though. That's a very big 10.
She understands. She knows. I let it all fly straight out of the gate 6 years ago.
Yeah, you're like, hey, listen, I want you to know I'm working on this. So this comes
going to consume my life. Deal.
What are there any specific? I know we talked a little bit about authors for you, Dennis. Are there any stories like books that stand out to the both of you that outside of like Harry Potter? I know we mentioned that. What other books stand out to you that are just your favorite to read or that you took inspiration from?
Well, I'm a huge Tolkien nerd, and I'm still just a layman compared to how deep the knowledge goes, but how based on my passion for the material, huge Tolkien fan. I've taken a lot of world building inspiration from Middle Earth, and honestly, like the Game of Thrones books, A Song of Ice and Fire. The story of Game of Thrones actually helped put the last details into place as to the political machinations and different houses and how they maneuver around each other. That was one of the last pieces to go into shaping the story before I reached out to Dennis saying, hey, I got this idea. Yeah, those are my two primary ones.
Right. What about you, Dennis?
Well, I mean, I Game of Thrones is obviously up there for me. I know you said you didn't want to say it, but I do pull a lot of influence that, especially the dialogue. I mean, the dialogue that George R. R. Martin puts down on paper, I try to mimic that as best I can. I wouldn't say mimic is the right word, but
You
draw
just like the cadence of it, right? Just like
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, because dialogue for me, and I don't know about it for you, John, has always been the most difficult thing to do because, like you said, getting from A to B is just that middle part is always the hardest thing, and that trickles down from from book to chapter to conversation, and I know how I want the conversation to go, but he just has such an art about it that you try to take it from it where he just makes a conversation seem so seamless and flow so naturally, getting from A to B, and I think that that's a really big skill. That from author to author changes so much, and I think that it defines the personality of an author a lot. So I would say, I mean, I don't want to throw out George R. R. Martin, but I do take a lot of I don't want to say notes for what he does, but a lot of strategy in how a scene develops from him.
Right.
It's also an interesting writing exercise to like try to like the way George Martin's experience writing Tyrion, writing someone who is smarter than you and having them be clever when you're not particularly very clever, and like have them, be great at strategy and working people when you're not, like that. Like it's a perfect writing workshop to try to like create someone when you're not that.
Right.
I would say that's the biggest challenge of writing a book like this too, is just going from chapter to chapter. You're changing from male to female, from old age to young age, and you're changing so many different perspectives. And
how do they see the world?
It's very hard to like almost change the tone of how each person interacts from chapter to chapter. And I think that we've had that pointed out in some of the notes that from people that have read the book and our editor through the years. I think that a lot of it is just trying to put yourself in the head of the character from chapter to chapter, especially when on Monday you're writing, about Lily, who's a seer in our book, and then going back to, the king, and just having those two different perspectives on 2 different days. It's very, you have to kind of compartmentalize your life and just step out from one character and step into another one and just realize that the perspectives are completely different.
Right. I was going to ask, what perspective is the story told from? Are we like viewing it from a 30,000-foot view, or is it told through the eyes of specific people? Like what perspective is it told from?
I would say we're pretty close to third person omnipotent. We try to make it like straight through their eyes. But I think we have found like a spot in between. It's something similar to, I think Frank Herbert did something similar in Dune, where like perspectives between characters in a scene could change. We don't do it to that degree. And actually, consistency was years ago one of the biggest things that our editor pointed out, that point of view needed to be standardized and stamped.
Right.
But I'd say we're pretty close to third person omnipotent.
Right. I know in a lot of those stories there are other languages and things like that. Are there other languages in this book? And if so, how in the hell are you writing a made up language if that's in there?
So there will be several different languages, and many different languages, as many different nationalities as there are. But the one that we are actually actively building is a language for a people called the Avari, which is what some of our main characters belong to. How do I begin? So I told you when I first started out, when I was 12 years old, in my daydreams, I was drawing a lot of inspiration from things I was into at the time. And one of the things I was into at the time, and Dennis, this might even be new information to you. I don't know if I've discussed this with you. But I was very into Dragon Ball Z at 12 years old. I still recognize it as a great work of art, but my following it waned over the years. But at 12, super hardcore into Dragon Ball Z. And I had a character that went by Goku and Kakarot in the story, and I realized as I got further along and thought that it might be a story, like I can't call this character this. But how do I hold on to that inspiration? Like, all right, so my character could have a title. How can I play with Kakarot? And it turned into Karok-At, which is like a royal title passed down in the Avari lineage of this country that's our primary location in the story. So like, okay, so I'm writing this character's father. He should have a similar name, but a little different. So his lineage royal title is Karok-Al. And so we had that down. His name is King Henry, but his Avari royal title is Karok-Al. And we sent it to my theater professor, who was very helpful, was one of our first editors, who pointed out, like, she taught us the word trite.
Oh, it's like a knife stabbing me in the heart every time I see that.
Wow.
Like, she just wrote trite 30 times on this document of our first draft prologue. But she pointed out that Karok-Al sounded Middle Eastern. And that wasn't my intention. I was just trying to find something that like sounded like ancient and tribal, and worked with my Dragon Ball Z nonsense that I had backed myself into that corner. But we leaned into it. I leaned into it. It was like, all right, what are some Middle Eastern languages that we can smush together to create something original? And I landed on a combination of Hebrew and Turkish. And so we've not created an entire language from it yet, but I do have a notebook full of vocabulary words where I researched the word for this, for a particular thing in Turkish and a particular thing in Hebrew, took the two words and kind of just sewed them together.
That I can't wait for when this movie is filmed and some actor gets the script and they're like, the hell? How am I supposed to say this? How am I supposed to say this right now?
I'm looking forward to it too, because I can tell them, look, if they can speak Elvish and they can speak Dothraki and Valyrian, you can speak this.
I was actually going to ask, like, because I know that you both have sent copies of the book or sections of the book to people and asked for like their honest opinion and things like that. And I was going to ask, like, I guess this is the perfect segue, like, because how hard is it to take like criticism, like constructive criticism on something that you've been working on nonstop for 8 years? How do you deal with that?
I'll say that's why that word trite stuck a knife in my heart, because that was one of the first copies, and we had worked, I mean, I would say so nervously about sending that out for the first time. And when we first sent it out, seeing that word nonstop, like it's very constructive, obviously. And I don't like, it helped us so much turn the book into what it is. But
when we sent a new version back to her, it was like that scene from SpongeBob. Is this version better? I made it with my tears.
And Meg read the book one time, and I remember a chapter that I wrote, and like 3 straight pages that I wrote, she just had a big X across them, and then and then one time I'm pretty sure she put a little note on the side and just wrote WTF with a question mark.
Meg does not hold back, and she has
that's
been
why I love her. That's why she's great.
That's the kind of reader that you need when you're going through stuff like this, because it's no crap, no fluff, and she'll tell you how exactly it is.
Yeah,
but she'll also tell you, like, this is great, this is great, this is great. Get rid of this.
Right. It's
loving this.
It's genuine.
No, over there.
Right. Are John and Dennis in this story?
No. Dennis, did you write yourself into this?
Maybe in parts, with like terminology, with what I might say, but not as a character.
No.
So I guess let me clarify. I guess obviously not like you two specifically, but I guess, are there any characters that when you're writing the story, you're kind of like, okay, how would I handle this situation? And like you put probably a little bit more of your ideology or the way that you talk or the way that you go about solving issues. Are there any characters in it that are, kind of like John, kind of like Dennis, like that you kind of draw inspiration from yourself a little bit?
I would definitely say, I mean, for you at least, I would say King Henry resembles you a lot.
Me?
Yeah, King Henry and Mason. Yeah, hey, we're talking about actors playing in the movie.
Oh no, not me. I'll be
honestly,
an extra. I'll be like Peter Jackson. I'll be the guy on the street eating the carrot.
well, there's a funny story that John always tells about his old football coach, and you can tell it because you tell it better. But that made an appearance in the first book.
I wrote one of my football coaches into the story.
Really?
He's a teacher at this military academy that some of our young main characters go to. It's sort of like a training up officers for this kingdom's army. They're like straight out of the gate. These are kids from well-off families who are have bought their placement in a high up military academy, and they'll be people with authority in the military when they graduate. So obviously one of the things I have to learn is hand-to-hand combat skills, and that teacher is my line coach from high school football. We've even given him the same name, and
Really?
he is a screamer who both screams his distaste and his compliments. And I took a memory from junior varsity football where it was 4th and 1, right? I was on defense and I got a sack on the quarterback, turnover on downs. We get the ball back, and I go over to the sideline, and he's running us through it, and he looks at me. He winds up and cracks me upside the helmet as like hard as he can, going, "Good job!" Like cracks me upside the head while telling me what a good job I did. So we put that into one of the scenes because it still lives in my head rent free to this day.
Right. It's funny because like I've never written anything fictional before, and like all I can think of is because like when I'm writing like my blogs and stuff like that, I'm always just in my head, obviously talking about my perspective, and I think it would be really hard for me, I think, to like not, I guess, put myself into some of these like characters, and because obviously I'm pretty sure there's characters in this story that probably do things and say things that the both of you would never ever even consider doing, right? And that would be my problem. I'll be like, if I'm writing this book, like this person would probably like kill somebody, I'd be like, but I wouldn't do that. That's so mean. Like,
why did I do that? Yeah, there are some troubling perspectives and points of view that we've had to include in this story. There are a few characters that are pretty racist, and the whole time I'm like,
yeah,
no,
yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah, and it took special care to make sure that we were seeing their racism from the perspective of characters who were like, what is the matter with you? And seeing them pay for it.
Right.
Yeah, that stuff happens all the time, and it's really just a matter of I spend most of the time in my head, not in my head. Like when I go into my head, I go somewhere else.
Got it.
And I feel like I've been doing that for most of my life, and that's how the story even came about. And I realize sometimes that that's not as easy for everyone else. That everyone else seems to be more self-aware and usually more like in their own thoughts and examining the world around them instead of creating another one to occupy yourself with.
I want to talk about the next step in the process for you, which is publishing this thing, which is, I'm going to assume, very easy and inexpensive.
Of course, it's already done. I've got a mountain of them behind me right here.
Talk about that process, the process of finishing something and saying, okay, world, here you go. What is that like? What does it feel like? What does it take? Is it expensive? How does it work?
Well, first of all, you got to tell yourself when you're finished, which is one of the hardest parts, because we edited this thing for 6 years. We wrote it for 2, and then we edited it for 6.
The editing was a nightmare at times.
Because like we literally started from step 0, ground floor, not knowing what the hell we were doing.
Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure we had like at one point a final copy, and that final copy changed 3 times after the final copy labeled the final copy.
So are you still in the process of because we're looking to publish this in 2020 in like early 2023, right?
So it is finished. This year we would like, this is it, it's done. We sent it to our consultant who formatted it into a document that could be printed into a book, and then Meg went through it one more time and cut out an additional 30 pages, which saved us money. It was came back to us at 495 book pages. It was like 600 Word document pages.
Oh.
And Meg cut it down to like 465.
Wow.
And it's, once you decide you're done with it, it was a matter of, well, we tried to get published through the traditional route and find agents and, well, find an agent, because if you try to go straight to a publishing house yourself, then you're never going to get anywhere. Unfortunately, that's the nature of the business. They listen to agents far more than someone like, this is my book.
Right. Read my book, please. It's only 800 pages long.
Please give me $10,000. $10 million. I'm shooting too low.
Right.
Yeah, that you did not find the right agents for our work. They all wish you luck, and they say, just because it's not the one for me doesn't mean someone else won't want it. But we realized that unless we want to be waiting forever to find our agent and our publisher, you might as well just go into self-publishing and do it yourself. Because what's really the most important here is that after all the time we spent on it, is that it ends up on someone's bookshelf, in someone's hands, on someone's Kindle. So yeah, it was there are a couple of different self-printing companies out there. I think we've gone with Ingram Spark. And actually, well, our consultant brought us on to Kickstarter. Showed us that people have had great success in funding their projects on there. And it was a great first pre-publish before we drop and publish on Amazon. You get readers before it's sent out there, and you have an opportunity for the word to spread, for them to talk about it, for them to write reviews. And so as we are winding down the Kickstarter campaign, I'm about to place our first order for books from Ingram.
That's exciting. Are you nervous?
It's just gonna be really cool to finally have it in your hand as an actual book, right? I might frame it, to be honest with you. I might
cry.
Is this like a hardcover or like a soft cover? Both. That's so exciting. Can you imagine the moment that you get a hardcover of your book in your hands?
Oh God, it's gonna be overwhelming. It's gonna be so
because you both have been working on this for so long, and to have like this first part of your journey in a way completed must be both emotionally exhausting and exciting at the same time.
Yeah. We always joke about that we should go back once we get the final one and read the first copy of it, just to see how much we progressed as writers. Right. And that's the face that John always makes right there. He's always just like, absolutely not. And that's even if we could find the first version. I mean, it's probably so far back in our emails.
Look, I'm going to draw up binding legal paperwork to ensure that our first draft, all traces of our first draft are destroyed, erased, burned, all the hard copies
That's some museum stuff right there, man. Yeah. That's some museum stuff.
I got a fire pit here. We'll throw it all in there.
I got a fireplace.
Are you still collecting are people still able to support like right now?
Yes, the Kickstarter campaign is open until December 5th. And we are dangerously close to meeting our goal. and hoping that we can actually overshoot it a little bit. But yeah, the support has been incredible from our family, our friends, and a few people that we've never even met before.
Right.
People who follow us on social, and I think there may be even one or two that just like peruse Kickstarter looking for things to back.
Right. That's so exciting, man. That's really stoked. And I like, to anybody that's listening to this or watching this, I am including their Kickstarter link in the description of this podcast, so you're able to go and support, like especially if you are into these types of stories. Like, you're like, this might be the ground like level of like something that is going to like take over the world. Like, because I would imagine, like, when J.K. Rowling was like writing Harry Potter, at no point did she think that there would be like a wizarding world at Universal Studios where people are like riding through the adventures, and stuff like that. Like, that's some exciting. So, like, this might, friends, if you are listening to this right now, this might be the beginning of something like huge in the world of Troy Bolton. In High School Musical, this could be the start of something new. It feels so right being here with you. No judgment.
That was a good one. I like that.
No
Yeah, no judgment.
No judgment. I love my High School Musical, so screw both of you. Okay, that's an epic story that I want to be a part of. So screw you.
And like talking about like the simple beginnings of these like great works that we all admire so much. That the Tolkien, it all started. Well, first of all, it all started because he created Elvish. Like, the language came first. And then the world came second. That's the kind of man he was. He was just a nerdy linguist. But the first line for The Hobbit, he was grading papers one day. He was teaching, I want to say it was Oxford. I might be wrong. And he was grading papers one day, and he literally just flipped the paper over. There was one blank page on the end, which he apparently is very thankful for. He just randomly wrote, "In a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit." And that's where it comes from.
Right.
As
just
simple
like that,
as
like,
just being bored
simple,
while doing your job. You create this world that grips and creates a genre as we know it.
Right.
It can be as simple as that.
So what's the ultimate goal here? So once all of this is quote said and done, it may not be all said and done, but like, what would you consider to be a successful venture into this? What would it take?
For me, it would just be being able to write full time. I don't need to be a huge, super A-list, multi-million-dollar making author that, I don't need to be a Stephen King or a George Martin or a Brandon Sanderson. I just want it to be my job. I just want it to be what pays my bills and supports me and my future family. Because I find more joy in this than just about any job that I've ever done.
Right.
Yeah, I would say the exact same. I would say the same. Plus, I would just just to have like something that we worked on, connect with somebody who's reading it. Is my camera frozen? My camera might be frozen.
It's frozen, but it's a nice face.
It's a nice face.
Yeah. I can't keep my zoom is just like it keeps.
You're not like mid sentence. It looks like a headshot, actually.
Yeah.
Well, that's the money shot right there. But yeah, just to be able to take my words and have somebody. There we go. Just to be able to have somebody read the words that we wrote and just connect with it in a way, or maybe take because I think throughout this book there's many lessons that you can learn from the characters in it. And just stories that hopefully people can resonate with, or feelings that people can resonate with. And I think that as a writer, that's the number two thing outside of, like John said, making this my full-time job, because I love working, but it's kind of I turned from a fun hobby into just something that allows you to put yourself into a project that you believe in, versus just working to work, right? This is something where you get the real success that you put in, and hopefully it just resonates with an audience that we can connect with.
That's amazing. Like, I'm super excited for both of you. Like, I can't wait to get my hands on this myself and read through this, because I love this stuff, and I expect when it becomes a big time movie, I expect a role. And I don't want to be an extra. Like, I want to be like an important part to the story. Like it doesn't have to be the lead character. I just want to be like a somewhat important part to this entire thing. That's all I ask.
All right, so we'll get together for dinner and we'll start plotting out who's going to be the actors and actresses.
Exactly. Because that's the most important part out of all of this. It's all about me, obviously, guys. It's all about me and my future and my career, obviously. But my friends, I'm super excited. Thank you so much for sitting and chatting about this epic story that you are writing and putting together. Like, this is so cool. And friends, if you are listening or watching this right now and you want more information about this entire process and the story and all of that, go click on the link that's in the description of this podcast. It's going to take you straight there. It's going to walk you through everything. And when you're there, there's actually some illustrations on there too. Where did you get the illustrations from?
We have illustrations from a few different artists.
Yeah.
Well, my friend from college, Dan, actually has done our character work, most of it, and it's actually his rough sketch of a character that turned into our main character, Mason, Prince Mason. It's his sketch of that snared Dennis into this project. Because I texted him one night, like, hey, we were talking about the things we were doing. I was like, hey, I've got an idea for this story. And I texted him the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you say, Dennis? What was your reply?
I forget.
His reply to that text was, I want to work on this with you.
Oh, yeah, that was it. Yeah. Word for word. Yeah, and I guess the rest is rock and roll history, right? We joke because back when we were in college, we went to Disney World one year on a road trip, and we said when we got there, the words were "we're there," right? and through the 8 years of writing this book, we always just joked like when we get there, and
we're
like
there.
we finished the book, we just look, we go, "We're there."
Oh, I love it, man. I'm honestly, I'm wishing the both of you like nothing but the best and all of the love. And like I'm going to be sharing this on my Instagram story as well for people to check out. And I want you to hit your goal because I want this to be successful, because once again, it's about me. I want to be in the movie. So like I have
if we don't meet the goal, Tyrus, you get nothing.
Oh no, donate please. My career is on the line.
My hopes and dreams are banking on these two gentlemen.
I love it. Well, Dennis, John, thank you so much for sitting with me today and talking through this. This is not going to be the last time we talk about this, because I'm definitely going to want some updates, even if it's like a year from now. I'm like, okay, is that second book ready to go? Let's go.
We will provide regular updates on the Rahmirion Chronicles and each installment in it.
Yes. And I expect you guys here every time to talk me through it.
Yeah, The Blood of a King, Book 1 of the Rahmirion Chronicles, dropping in the spring. Book 2, The Dark Crown, coming next fall.
It's going to happen.
Don't hold me to that, but that's what we're looking at right now.
We are manifesting that shit. It's going to happen.
Yeah, screw it. It's happening. Book 2 coming out next fall.
I love it. John, Dennis, thank you so much. Like I said, my friends, if you're watching this, go click on the link in the description of this video, of this podcast, and you're going to get all of the information about what they're doing and how you can get your own copy eventually and reading it through, especially if you are a big fan of fantasy stories and war and magic and different languages and football coaches that are now in the fantasy world.
I really hope he reads it someday. Unlikely, but it'd be nice.
Fingers crossed, knock on wood.
Yeah, right. And so with that said, my friends, if you enjoyed this podcast right here, be sure to follow me on all of your favorite social media platforms. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, anything that you listen to, anything that you watch. The Vibe with Kai. I'm there, most likely, doing weird stuff like I always do, being a nerd and all of that stuff. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. John, Dennis, you're amazing. Everybody else, have a wonderful rest of your day. As always, much love, good vibes, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.